This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy.
Robert Capuccio, welcome back to the show, you strapping lad. Look at you. Did you put a tie and a vest on for me?
No, this is my work outfit, just the whistle and flute. But, I thought you were talking about the fact that my head is perfectly round. I do have a very round head, don't I?
You have a very round head. There'd be a lot of bald men out there that are very envious of the precise roundness of your noggin.
Yeah, there's no dents. There's no weird contours. It's just roundness.
First time you ever shaved your head, were you a bit like, oh, what if it's not round? Or were you pretty certain it was going to be round?
Oh, I knew it was going to be round. They shaved my head in the military, first day of boot camp. And I was like, oh, you know what?
I got a good looking head.
This is all right. I'm too tired to care. I haven't slept in days, but yeah. All right. This is cool. So I always knew. And then what year was it? There was one year, it was going back over a decade, and I was dating someone who really liked bald men. And she's like, oh, shave your head. So I was like, all right, let me shave my head, see how it goes. And it wasn't like bald skin. It was like a buzz cut. I liked it so much. Every year on my birthday for the next 4 years, I shaved my head. So I knew what I was getting into.
What I envy about blokes' haircuts is you can have what seems like a drastic change, but because it's not, well, some blokes have long hair, but go, oh, I feel like a change. I'm going to shave it to a number one. And it's like, oh, you've got a new haircut. And then 2 months later, it's, you can have hair again. You can have a different haircut. Mine's so long now, and it used to be so short for so long. And I keep going, oh, I'm going to cut it all off again. But it's curly now. It used to, when I last had it straight, it was dead straight. Then a couple of years ago, some hormonal bloody shift happened and my hair went wavy / curly-ish. And now I can't trust that I could go back to that haircut because I'm like, I don't know how this hair is going to behave at that length. That's a lot of years of unruly growing out that has to happen.
It's hard to grapple with the unpredictability of life,
Isn't it?
It's random. There's so much randomness in life. Makes it exciting. But
so many choices to make. There's so many decisions.
Yeah. It's scary when you've grown your hair out because you've invested more time, So it's like that sunken cost cognitive fallacy. You don't know. It's like, I've invested all of this, but you look amazing with short hair and long hair. You've got a versatile face.
Oh, I've got an extremely robust forehead for the whole long hair. I'm not down with it. Plenty of forehead going on. I'd like a smaller forehead. Forehead. Did you say forehead or forehead?
It's a forehead because it's four. It's forward.
In Tassie, it's a forehead.
Forehead. Yeah. I mean, if it was the back, it would be the afted.
Can't believe we recently had a conversation about the buoys and I hung shit on you. And then I saw an article or something talking about the fact that Yanks say buoy. And I was like, oh my God, I've totally put an episode
I know a Yank who says buoy.
Titling it and hanging shit on them like they were wrong. And it's a thing. And now I'm fully the idiot. I was reveling in Bobby gets to be the idiot this time. Do you know how many years I've waited for you to be the idiot? And me to be the smart one? I was like, yeah,
most people only got to wait a minute or two. I don't know what's going on with you. So, but you know what? Whatever it's called, however you pronounce it, I like your forehead. I think it's got a nice shape to it, It's
going to be light bouncing off of it right now.
Oh God, I'm probably sounding really sexist. People are just going to log off. But isn't with women a more prominent forehead? It's considered an attribute of beauty, to have your hair. Isn't that a thing? Like,
I don't know. It's definitely not a thing in my world. I don't believe.
I mean, in general, like I saw it in like this movie about Marilyn Monroe. So Norma Jean, she had her hair tweezed back further because it was supposed to be. I don't know what I'm even talking about. Anyway, I have no clue. I'm just like rationalizing your forehead, which I do like, by the way. It's a great forehead.
Well, thank you. I take it on board and I feel very appreciative of your positive comments. What's been going on in your world?
Well, I'm moving house.
Again, right.
Fuck it. I move for sport. It's crazy right now. Like things are just nuts. And I'm just moving across the car park. There's a car park and another building. And I look down on that building, not like I think I'm too good to live in the building. It's just right now I'm on the 30th floor and that building is 7 stories total. So when I look out the window, I look straight down on it and thought, oh, we're going to get out of here. This is not worth it. This place is a bit sterile. Hey, what if we move there? We were going to move up north to like not the country, but the mountains and the valley. And I was really excited about just sitting on a balcony at the end of a work day and just staring into mountains with nothing around me. But then, Amy had, she's gone through surgery and I panicked. I was like, I don't want to go so far up north. I don't want to move an hour away. What if it's too much? Okay, that's pretty close. I reckon I'll just move there. So I took a walk across the street and I was like, hey, you're letting people move in here? Yeah, we're doing that. All right, cool. Can I move in? Well, I don't know. Fill this out. Okay, I'll fill this out. And it's like, so I filled that out. So, yeah, you can move in. I thought, all right, I think we'll do that. So.
The process of moving. Nah, no fun.
It sucks. The cat's traumatized. Like he's walking around, like things are disappearing from the house. Like the pictures are off the walls. Because, cats, they do not like change at all. They are talk about resilience. Like they're tough. They've got grit, but not a lot of resilience. They're not adaptable. So he just walks around the house meowing in like this perplexed despair. It's very sad. I'm just trying to just give him a lot of treats, help him cope.
I do like change though. Like I'm one of those people that likes to just have a different environment or have change. Like I would love to, I think of the apartment I moved out of. So I was in prior to the P word, the pandemic, I was in this other apartment in Elwood and I shared with somebody. So we shared the apartment. So it was newer and it was really light, lots of light, had a little courtyard. And then when they moved out, I was like, I don't want a housemate anymore. I just want to live by myself. So I stayed there for a bit and then I was like, middle of COVID. All chaos was ensuing. And I was like, this is probably not the most smart financial decision to have this. I should downgrade a little bit. I don't need this apartment. Not like it was huge, but so I moved into a little bit older, a little bit smaller one. And when I moved into this, I was like, it's got a homely feel because the other one was modern and light and open, but felt a bit display homey for me. And it never had that homely feel. And sometimes I walk past that now and I'm like, all that light, all that sunlight coming in, that full window frontage. I miss that. I'd like to live in a place like that. And I'm like, you lived in that. And when you moved out, you loved the feel of this house. Now I'm like, this house sucks. I want that house.
That's okay. I used to get like so much shit because I always moved. And I moved for work a lot, but I also moved because I like different environments too. For me, it's like a reset button. Yeah. I'm very affected by my environment. I'm unapologetic by it. A lot of people are. So if I go from one place to another or something inspires me, I thrive there. That's part of the reason why I'm moving. This place is so absolutely expensive. And it's sterile. Like when you first come to the building, people are like, oh my God, wow. It's like a literal city, self-contained city. But it's just, it seems like... It seems like Jane and Larry from accounting got together and decorated this place. It's so corporate looking with the building I'm moving into. It's like very schwank and it's just like, it's got a little bit of edge to it. It's like people are walking around in silver outfits for some reason. It's great.
Are they furnished apartments or furnished places, or do you have your own furniture?
Oh, no. We got our own.
Yeah.
Like for years, I always looked for furnished apartments because like I was in and out and I was just like bouncing around for different places for work. So that worked for me. But now, like, Amy has a very specific style. She wants to bring all the furniture.
Do you know what? I've been thinking about this lately. So it was interesting. You mentioned it, the idea of people's energy. Like, I'm really susceptible to energy. How do you have an awareness on it, or do you utilize that in terms of where and how your life's going and deciphering what feels good and feels you, and if you're on the right path? Being around, like choosing who I'm around and what I want to do and where I want to head. I'm aware that I can attack anything with a level of enthusiasm. But sometimes I know that enthusiasm can be absorbed, or ideas can be absorbed from somebody and sound good. And then once I start to action something, I'll realize that it's not a fit for me, or it's not where I want to head, or it's.
So there's almost like a kinesthetic sense that you use to like calibrate and navigate through your life.
Yeah. Like I think I fit, like not deliberately, but I think I've always adapted really easily and naturally into environments and will be heavily influenced by the people around me. And so being conscious of that, I've always made sure that I'm aware of it, who you're spending time. And it's a thing I check in on. It's like, things going well or things not going well. Who's around? Who are you spending your time with? Is there a correlation there? Is there anything in the environment or the social circles that's influencing who you are and how you feel? Sometimes it's been a case of I'm frustrated. I am not where I'm not where I want to be. This is frustrating me. I'm not making progress. And so then I do that check and I might go, well, no wonder, because you're spending a lot of time here talking about this, doing this, being around this, but yet part of you really wants that.
I don't know if I understand you.
Which is difficult at the best of times.
No, there was a lot there. There was like 20 questions. I was like, wow, okay. But I think we're similar in the sense that I get a feel for something and I don't know why. And sometimes I don't care. Like when you talk about, like people will talk about what they're looking for in a partner. They've got this huge list. I want this, I want this, I want that, and I don't want this. And that's not me. I can't navigate through life like that. Definitely with areas and neighborhoods and cities where you talk to somebody about where they live. It's like, oh, well, there's good schools and there's lots of places to park. And, I have all the shops, and it's like, it's almost a checklist of conveniences and amenities. I'm like, no, that's not me. Where, London or New York City, I feel this electricity running through my vein. I feel that me as a person, I'm a single line in a vast storybook. And I'm just part of it, a very, very small part of it, but I'm part of a centuries long, ever evolving story. And I don't know where I end and the city begins. Other cities, I just feel like a good sense, a good energy. I don't necessarily feel like this intertwining of my sense of being and the environment, but it's all energetic. So, like, I'm going to say something that's going to irritate so many people because San Diego, you can't really say this. The only thing you're allowed to say about San Diego, well, I'm talking so stupid right now. Like, you can't say this. Of course you can say it. I'm about to say it. And there's nobody that's going to stop me from saying this. So I can say it. But it's almost like, oh my God, San Diego, it's amazing. It's just so beautiful. I don't find it amazing at all. I live here because my work is out here and what I'm doing is important. But there's just not this energetic resonance between me and the city. So I walk around, it's like, it's picturesque. I mean, not exactly where I am. There are drawbacks that I'm not going to get into because a lot of them involve feces. But that's a totally different story. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, there's feces all over. And it's like some of that's from dogs, some of that's not from dogs, some of that's from people. But like the city itself, it's so gorgeous. The landscape, the architecture, like there's a lot to love here. And I'm like, it just doesn't work for me because I don't feel that. And as nothing, it's not a reflection on the city. It's almost like I'm vibrating on a completely different frequency than San Diego. Where Singapore, kind of the same vibrational energy. Love Singapore. I'm feeling this. London to a much different degree, and New York City. Like when I'm there, time seems to it goes by slowly. That's another thing. How fast does time pass in an environment? If days feel like weeks, I'm probably in a good place. If months feel like days, probably not. That's my criteria. Same thing with people. Who am I around that makes time slow down or completely stop? If you've ever been in that situation, I know you have many times, probably a few times a week, where you are so absorbed in someone and the conversation, it's timeless. It's almost like a flow state. And then you snap out of it. It's like, oh my God, that was so enjoyable. But you didn't have that level of awareness because you were so engrossed in the moment. That for me is, I really think it's like flow states. I think the quality of life is how often you can get into flow states, like that level of frequency and consistency.
And flow states, like a lot of my experience of accessing flow states have been in really exhilarating, like boxing or, things like that. When on Saturday, I drove up to Balan, which is a bit over an hour away, and hung out with Patrick, who comes on the show, Patrick Bonello, and his dog. So he's got a friend that's got a whippet, and he kept saying, you've got to come and meet Walter the whippet and bring Luna, and we have a puppy play date. Walter the whippet. And so I drove up there, and we took the dogs for a walk, and they ran off leash, and it was amazing. And then we went and had some lunch, and then we hung out in the backyard, and the dogs wrestled, and it was fun. And I spent the entire day there, and I drove home that night. And I swear to God, if I had the money in the bank, I would have, in that moment, I would have just put dollars down on, bought a house in Balan and gone, I'm going to come and live here. It was interesting because I'm like, I wonder is it just because it's a change? Is it because of the energy of the place? Is it the idea of having a yard with dog friends that we can just lay in the grass and waste the day? But there was no tiff rushing. There was nothing. It was just, I wanted to stay all day. I didn't want to rush home and get to bed early. It was like, let's do this. We played some pool, then we played some Beat Saber on the VR headset, all this stuff. And I just went home going, maybe I should move to the country.
Is this something that you just discovered about yourself, or is this the person you're evolving into?
Good question. I felt the last two trips to Tassie, there was much more of a love for that quiet feel, that quiet, that place, and even being like when I went to Tassie, I went for some e-mountain bike rides with my uncle. The last one we went wasn't a strenuous ride, but we rode around through some tracks and outside of Devonport, and through some creeks and bushes, and I was just like, as I rode through those secluded places, I was like, I'd totally get a place and live out of the town, like just in the middle of, and get a horse and blue sky and some trees and no one's around. And it was just a peaceful energy. And that's a change in me that, it's interesting. Not sure. Because it's not that long ago, I would talk to people who feel like Elwood and St Kilda is one of those places in Melbourne where most people I speak to are like, I used to live in St Kilda, I used to live in Elwood. And I go, why would you ever move? Like Elwood's beautiful, leafy suburb near you're close to the beach. It's
stunning.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And it's got a bit of a village vibe to it. I really love it. And I would think, why would you ever move away from there? But like I get it now. I'm like, it's really nice. I drove down to Dramana to be on a podcast the other day and live in the studio, and drove down there. I was like, it's really nice down here in Dramana. I can see why you live here.
God, it's interesting. Like I think when you're open to change, there's this understanding that it doesn't have to be permanent. It's just like there's this thing about experimenting with life.
Yes.
Because there's almost like this permanence and this anxiety and, oh my God, what if? Like, what if I don't like where I move? Well, you can move again. experiment with it. Just see what happens, test it. I think that might be a key to resilience too, is I was having so many interesting conversations with this person I was doing a workshop for this morning. It's interesting because she reminds me in some ways of Lisa Stevenson. She looks like Lisa. She's got like some of Lisa's mentality. And she said that she took a course on how to make sourdough bread. And I was like, oh, wow. So you're really into bread. She's like, no, not really. I was like, well, that's an interesting thing to do. That's like me taking up knitting. I don't knit at all. Why would I do it? She's like, well, I just wanted to experiment with doing something else that's really hard. She loves doing the hard thing. Like making bread is very hard. I love that. And I'm like, oh. And we were talking. I was like, God, if people would just experiment with things, like it's not a reflection of who you are. It's not like pass or fail. It's not like, I can't make this sourdough bread. I failed at it. I'm a complete loser. It's not like, oh, wow, I've made sourdough bread. Like I'm a rock star. No, it's like I'm really apathetic to what this reflects about me. I don't care. I just want to learn how to do this thing. Because I think that sometimes like discipline and doing really hard things, it's a form of self-care. Like we talk about self-care as if it's this soft and fluffy thing. And, she was talking about this like, she was invited out for a spa day to just decompress and not think. And she was like, oh, that would be torture. I would be so stressed out at the end of a spa day. But, working on something and dedicating hours to it. I'm like, yeah, because, dopamine is a stress modulator. It regulates cortisol release through the HPA axis. When you get into flow states and you release like things like dopamine in the brain and you alter your biochemistry, that's exhilarating. So being able to focus and do these hard things and discipline, as long as it's connected, I think, to something that's relevant to you, to something that's important to you, because otherwise it's a drudgery, and you're not going to get into that state. I think doing really hard work, because people often frame it, and we've talked about this a lot, as if it's this thing where I don't want to do it, but I'm such an amazing person of moral character that I'm diving into it. If you do that consistently, you will be less stressed, more engaged in life than if you don't. So it really is a form of self-care. And I think what stops people sometimes is these stories about what it means to engage in something and struggle through it. Just experiment. Like experiment with living. I know you got a whole family. It's like, oh my God, Dad, we're moving again. We moved 2 months ago. That's not great. I get that. There's limitations, but experimenting with where you're living, seeing what works, what resonates. When we were on the podcast with Craig, I was talking about like experimenting, with stand-up comedy, and that allowed me to discover something about myself. Like I'm not really that funny and I suck at that, but I never would have known that definitively. I mean, I only would have had my wife's feedback to go on, but I was like, all right, she's biased. But no, I got to stand up in front of multiple audiences and go, wow, she's right. I really do have a shit sense of humor. And like you with the podcast, I'm going
to pull you up right there. And I'm going to disagree. I think that, because this gets me onto that topic of whether or not we can, what we're capable of, and the whole, you can do anything you put your mind to. And I think that comes down to whether you fucking want it. And if you really want something, like you could have been funny. If you wanted that bad enough in a one-eyed, I absolutely know that I want to master this. You might not stand up on day one and nail what needs to be nailed, but because it wasn't a big enough thing for you, it wasn't the one thing you wanted, you didn't do it. Like there's plenty of people. Go and listen. If you haven't heard it, go and listen. I think it was on the Graham Norton or something. Can't remember. Ed Sheeran plays a song of him singing before he could sing, and it was bloody terrible. He could not sing at all. So, because he talks about talent, he goes, because I wasn't talented. People want to tell you that you're either talented or you're not. And And I really think, and then how far you get with something, it doesn't matter, because if you love it that much that you're willing to say, I don't care if I'm shit, I'm doing it and I'm going to believe in it, then it's the journey, not the destination. It doesn't fucking matter if you get there or not. Does it matter? Does it matter if you never get to run the ultra marathon that you said one day I can? No, it matters that it fills your cup and it allows you to put in the fucking work. And the result that you don't get, well, that's just everybody else from the sidelines. That's just them sticking their nose in. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you don't get there.
Well, I think that's the key right there. That's the key to doing hard shit. Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying, well, you got to really want it. But to me, it's like if something resonates with a core value of yours, it's not about the outcome. Now, of course, achievement feels great, right? Because it's a metric of how well you're doing. And a lot of times that achievement gets you resources to do more of what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
But would you do it for its own sake? When it's amazing, it's exhilarating, you feel connected. And when you feel like shit, you're like, why did I ever get into this? And you have these devastating setbacks. Would you still do it for the sake of doing it? I think that's the key to engagement. That's when you know that your behaviors and your values are aligned. So that's brilliant. That's the key for me. So have you read much of Martin Seligman at all?
Oh, not a great deal, no.
What's interesting about Martin Seligman, there's a lot of interesting things about Martin Seligman. We talk about well-being all the time. And I'm all about semantics. Like when we say something, what do we mean by this? So I sat down with an executive leadership team today, and we were talking about mindfulness. I know a couple of people are coming into that meeting dreading it because they were thinking about like a yoga pose or like sitting in a meditative state, like chanting Om. And it's like, no, this is not for us. Like, we're high performers. We're not mindful. It's like, oh, well, what's important to you? Like, what do you look for? Who's the best colleague you've ever worked for? What made them critical to you? What made them engaging for you? Who was your best hire ever? Like if I could just rehire this type of person all the time, God, it would drive performance and make our lives so much better having them around. Well, everything that you list requires mindfulness. You're not going to learn. You're not going to grow. You're not going to create much, if you're not mindful. And a lot of times mindfulness shows up between two people. So you have to identify what exactly are we talking about. And the problem with well-being for me is for so many people, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, well, well-being. You know what well-being is? No, I don't. What does it mean to you exactly? Like define the elements, and Gallup defines it. Martin Seligman's definition is not far from Gallup, but then he breaks it down through PERMA, an acronym. So according to Martin Seligman, people who are thriving in a state of well-being experience positive emotions more of the time. So it doesn't mean it's the absence of negative emotions. Negative emotions are inevitable and they're highly useful. But the ratios are different. And this aligns with, the work of Barbara Fredrickson, where she's on teams, company teams, high performing teams, there's ratios. And I think it's about 2.9, but we can round up to 3, right? So in every meeting, there's every conversation is about 3 positive emotions for every negative emotion. So, you could cycle that in a 2-hour meeting, a lot of negative shit comes up, but the ratios are 3 to 1. And those teams seem to perform better. So it's positive emotions. It's a level of engagement, right? So you're engaged and then there's meaning. Like there is meaning to what I'm doing. And he breaks it down into these domains. And I think it's easy to remember because of the acronym. So it's positive emotions or a higher index ratio of positive emotions. The E stands for engagement. I'm able to sustain focus and concentration on areas that are critically important to me. They mean something to me. And that I have a high level engagement in the things and the people that matter. I have strong, rewarding, healthy relationships. I'm living a life of meaning. And at the end of that, there's achievement. And it's like, okay, so if you have these 5 things going for you, you're less likely to develop a whole host of diseases. You're much less likely to experience chronic anxiety, chronic depression, senses of hopelessness. You're much more likely to bounce back, to be resilient. And you're probably one of those people who would experience post-traumatic growth on the tail end of post-traumatic stress. To where it's not like the worst. He has this list of 15 of the worst things that can ever happen to a human being. It's kind of a fun read if you go through it. And it's kind of like, fun. Who are the people that have multiple things on this list happen to them? And they don't just survive it. They thrive as a direct result of it. People who have had 3 are stronger than people who had 2. People who had 2 are stronger than people who had 1. Now, that's very different when you're dealing with childhood adverse experiences. That's a whole different game when your brain is still forming. But as an adult, if you haven't had that and you've had a solid foundation and you're living in alignment with PERMA and there's a certain ratio of values and strengths that kind of lend itself to this. But you're someone who, when really bad things happen to you, you become more as a result. Doesn't mean you enjoy it. Doesn't mean you wanted it to happen or you go through it again. It just means that the way you frame it and the way you look at the world produces growth in spite of it. Or in spite of it's probably not the right word, because of it.
I wonder, I had half a thought, I haven't even fully processed it yet as you're talking about that. And I wonder how much, because the art of taking action, so autonomy in the reaction to whatever that thing was. So I guess when I think of back at the time where I got curious and went, oh, that shit that happened to me as a kid, that's not gone away. It's in my mind and it's crept out of the black box and I'm thinking about it. Now I'm curious. And so I took it upon myself to question, what residue has it left? What parts of that are responsible for the things that challenge me today? What parts of my personality are a result? What strengths are really just a coping mechanism or a reaction to the adversity or the shitty thing that I experienced? So that for me, way before seeking help or making much sense, was the act of, I'm going to take this on. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to play a part in this. So you get that autonomy and control over the thing. I wonder how much that plays a part in how we feel and respond to trauma.
I'm so interested in that question. I think that's a very important question. And it's a question that I want to find out more about it. Yeah. It's like sometimes things masquerade as strengths, but they are coping mechanisms. And they stop you from engaging in a life of well-being. And I'm just like making up a scenario off the top of my head, but someone who's like really self-sufficient and like this complete go-getter from the outside. It's like, wow, this person's amazing. They're full of energy and like they're independent, but it's like, I have an avoidant attachment style because I was hurt, maybe even violated as a kid. And so it stops me from engaging in relationships that generate psychological safety and vulnerability and allows me to grow and contribute to someone and be contributed to. But it's on the outside. It's kind of like running a racket. It's almost like a shadow trait, isn't it? Where it's pretending to be one thing, but it's really another thing. I think, and if it creates dysfunctional or disruptive maladaptive behavior patterns where you're severely lacking something that you deeply desire, and it's your patterns that are getting in the way, well, it probably isn't a strength. There's nothing wrong with being self-sufficient. It's a very good thing. Beats being completely codependent, doesn't it? But is that the attribute we're actually observing? And I'm just speaking from my own life. It was like, yeah, Bobby's so disciplined. All he does is work all the time. But I was irritating to be around, and a lot of aspects of my personality made it hard to really bridge that gap from colleague to friend. Yeah. And I was like, oh, and I wanted that. If I didn't want that, you know what I mean?
That was exactly my experience, was going, oh, your independence is actually fear of connection. Your strength is actually dissociation. Like all of this resilience is it's dissociation. You're not resilient. You just don't. Your biology and psychology has learned how to dissociate with what's happening. So when you walk into what everyone else sees in that moment is scary, your body has gone offline, and so there's no connection there. So it was like, oh, I'm so tough. It's like, nope, you're scared of things that are healthy for humans. And so, but what I'm thinking right now, which I've never really thought much about before, but I was ready to go, oh, this thing. I wonder if someone came along and said, hey, I know that happened to you, and they started to tell me or guide me towards some sort of resolution about that, would the feeling of disempowerment and shame and being told, rather than me being the one driving the bus on my own curiosity about healing and growing from what happened and making sense of it? I wonder, because there'd be people who have been through something, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just curious, but they've been through something, and someone who's supporting them is like, we need to support you, and then they're driving the narrative, they're driving the healing, they're driving all of the sense making for the person who actually went through the thing, which could feel disempowering and shaming, and they're not ready for it. And so, because what is the difference between the trauma that becomes the anchor, or the trauma, which I believe my experience is, which is trauma was the gift. Trauma, I say, like, adversity is my greatest ally. That's one of my taglines I use a lot now. Adversity is my greatest ally for growth, because it's the one thing that has caused me to be great at things and to be brave and to be strong and be all those things that I believed I was for a long time, but really wasn't.
Well, I mean, that's hard. The last part, you had me all the way up until the last part. I think, again, both things are true. So it could be something that's just a mask, or it at the same time could be a real attribute that you demonstrate. And it's rooted in adversity. Mm-hmm. So it's very plausible that two things that seemingly are contradictory are absolutely true in reference to you and everybody else. My guess would be that no matter how brilliant someone is, if they are fixing you, I know what happened to you, I support you. Oh, and here's what you need to do. That's not support, right? Support is holding space for someone. Support is not only unconditional positive regard for someone, but it's also respect for the individual and autonomy. I think because it's control. And I don't mean that this person is like, I know what to do. They're legitimately and intentionally trying to control you, but do this followed by that is control. And as control elevates, autonomy decreases. And without autonomy, there's not enduring motivation. There's not resilience. There's not, like you said, like, well, what if that shame surfaces? Well, if you're moving forward at your own pace for your own reasons, and these are intentional decisions and frames that you're creating, well, okay, I can sit with that shame and go, well, what does that mean? What's creating that? I can't do that. I can't reconcile something if somebody else is guiding my steps for me. So the only thing I could do is either comply with it, or if it gets too painful, or if I feel like I'm not being seen or validated, I can outright defy somebody. Well, I did what I did what you told me to do. I wrote a letter and to someone who basically hurt me, and I gave it to them and they read it, and now they never want to speak to me again. Thanks. Thanks, coach. Now what? Because that was your decision, right? So it's not your change. What they're doing is stealing efficacy from you, and they're stealing accountability. Because if they tell you what to do and it doesn't work, well, how do you adapt to that now? It was their strategy. So if you can't adapt, you're not resilient. But if they tell you something and it absolutely works, that wasn't your win. That doesn't elevate your internal sense of efficacy. That doesn't fuel autonomy. It was their win, not yours. So I just don't know. I just don't know if that works.
This is why.
I mean, unless you're on, like, I don't know, a talk show and it's Dr. Phil, then he'll tell you what's wrong with you and what you need to do to fix yourself.
This is why I think, therapists and different types of therapies can be such a minefield, because there's so much that comes down to interpersonal skills, intuition, and relationships, but people come out of their accreditation of whatever modality they've beeline focused to and really absorbed. And in the learning process of that, like I'm learning piano at the moment, and when I'm learning, I'm focusing on one thing, and then I change once. Like I had to start using the sustain pedal. So I'm learning chords, I'm proficient in this song, and then next minute they're like, we're teaching you how to actually use the sustain pedal now. I'm like, oh, you mean I don't just lug my foot on it and leave it there? And then all of a sudden, when I had to use the pedal, the whole song, I couldn't focus on all of the things. So when a human being goes in and learns a certain type of therapy, whatever they choose, whether that's psychotherapy or CBT or whatever, they're looking at that thing, and then all of the natural stuff of managing the relationship, listening, picking up on cues, there's got to be a process of a lot of that getting missed in the early days. So, and then they're dealing with people in this really heightened experience in their life where they're ready, they're open to looking for help, but they don't know what that looks or feels like. And most of us, I know it was true for me when I first went to someone, was like, cool, I'm here, I'm ready, I've opened the door in my own mind, here's the problem, I've Googled it, here's what I'm experiencing, away you go with your verbal bloody red pill situation. Like, give me the pill, fix me. And just look at them like, you've done the study. Like, I don't know what, I didn't know what good therapy for me. I didn't know what I needed. And the people that seek therapy and healing don't know what they need. So it's a minefield.
Fix me. Yeah, you're not a piano, are you?
You are not a piano.
And I think most people would agree that that's true. But it's like when you're teaching someone a skill, you want sort of a hierarchical relationship. Don't coach me through playing the piano. Like, tell me what the steps are.
Yeah.
When it comes to personal transformation, because it is so complex, and because no one has greater expertise on you than you do, it just doesn't work. Someone can guide you. Someone can help you learn more about why you are the person you are, why you respond to situations in the way you do. But exactly how to go from being the person you are to the person you want to be, that responsibility, that decision, that autonomy, that has to lie with you.
My third therapist, I would have told you this before. My third therapist in our fourth session said to me, Tiff, normally by 3 sessions in, I have a real sense of who somebody is and what they need. And I'm sitting there with bated breath, and he goes, I just don't get that with you. Like this guy was snookered on me. And I look back and I go, yeah, because I didn't know me still. I was so disconnected to my own intuition and also to maybe vulnerability and relating to people and feelings and emotions and like everything was so. I was looking for the rules, I don't know what do people do? Can you make me do the way people do? Like I want a people like the other people. So I'm normal and the same, and no one's the same. Like he had a hell of a challenge on his hand. I would have been challenged by me at that time. That point in time. I'm like, I don't know what I want out of this. I just want to be like all of the people that are the same except for me. Everyone's the same but me. I'm broken.
I'm having a hard time navigating through this. I wasn't even in the room.
You feel like him in that fourth session. You're like, shit, Tiff, I have no idea.
No, I mean, let me stop taking the piss right now because it's probably not appropriate, but like, how many of us just want to be like everybody else? Like, you ever hear that song, I Started a Joke by Robin Gibb of the Bee Gees? Oh, it's this beautiful and hauntingly sad song. You know, the Bee Gees are usually like not associated with that, you know, although they do have some pretty deep pieces that they've created. But my interpretation of that song is it's about a guy who just never gets it right, who tries so hard, who feels so ostracized and isolated from other people and just really tries to engage and connect, but always says the wrong thing. You know, I started a joke. It was a joke and it didn't land well, to say the least. But it's not about a single isolated event like, oh God, what did I say last night? We've all had those moments. It's almost a metaphor for his entire life. And it's like, wow, you could feel that like despair. Now, I don't know if that's the meaning. There's different interpretations of what that song means. But for me, that seems, based on the words and the tone of the song, that's what he's saying. And how many of us have felt like that before? I mean, some people just, you know, they don't question it. It's like, I am who I am. I guess I'm like everybody else. I don't know. But for people who have always been different or they've had experiences that are unique and like they've grown up to see the world and react to the world quite differently than other people. I know I felt that like when I was, I remember having a conversation with a pastor of a church of, you know, old people just going, and he just looked at me and he gave such a beautiful reflection. And he's like, yeah, you just want to be like everybody else. You just want to like, he's like, not really fit in. You just don't want to stand out that much. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, what does fitting in mean to you? Like, do you feel like you don't fit in? What does that mean? You know?
It's funny though how we simultaneously crave fitting in, or maybe say fear not fitting in, but also crave being special, crave being standing out. And it's like we want both of those opposing things at the same time. Paradoxically, one might say. It's been quite a while since you've used that word.
Yeah, because I think it shows up in every area of life. We also want a modicum of safety with people. Yeah. But then we get that and it's like, oh, God, there's no variety in this relationship.
Yes.
It's so predictable, but it's very safe. Oh, but I want predictability. But if all I had, or I want like things that are unpredictable, but if all I had was novelty, I never had that safety with someone, I can't build on that. So yes, we want things that are seemingly in conflict with one another, you know, and there are assumptions I think that create such a wide chasm in that conflict. But until we're willing to have that conversation, we're open to what's creating this? Like, well, like, what am I needing right now? Well, what could a therapist really do for us?
So much. Look, I feel like, and I'm still finding my way and getting used to it, but like cracking the code to us, there's that figuring out what do I love? How do I work best? Where should I be? Who should I be with? What should I do? I hate that I'm using the word should. But these are questions we probably tend to think to ourselves. And I noticed that, and even recently I've noticed that we absorb or observe others and we should on ourselves. So I should do this. This is how people do it, and it's better, and you should be doing it that way. And, you know, like, for example, my 10-week coaching program, I was like, I need to lock things in and do them regularly so that people can know when to expect. And I'm doing my second one at the moment. I work best, like I show up as my very best version of me when I schedule that when the feeling takes me there. So right now this is week 8 of the second one. And halfway through these 8 weeks, I've already gone, I don't want to be locking in the date for the next one yet. I want to wait until I'm ready, because otherwise they're not getting the best of me. They're getting some planned version. And if that's what they're getting, I'd rather not do it, because I only want people to get the best of me. And that has shown up in my life in a lot of different ways for a long time. And this time is the first time that I'm like, that's cool. Everybody else can have their consistent, bloody locked-in schedules. I don't work that way, and I never will. I'm not going to try and force myself into that. I'm going to work the way that I love to work, because that's why I chose this life. And if I unchoose it, I'm going to end up unhappy and a lesser version of myself. But it takes failing in that so many times. It takes ending up. And I notice that my narrative when I end up in those places, like, oh, you chose this and now you're not happy. You said yes to this and now you're not happy. You initiated doing this thing for these people at this time, and now you're not happy with what you chose to commit to. And it's like, that's okay. You don't know until you do it.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of self-awareness. And did you choose it, or did you should all over yourself, like you were talking about
Lots
earlier?
Of shooting. Yeah.
Because that again is one of my critiques of self-help. There's a person you should be. There are things you should be doing, but should is it's very unstable. One, it magnifies the divide between who you are and what you want and where you see yourself. You know, it's like, well, I should be living in a beautiful neighborhood. What does that do? It reinforces, well, your neighborhood sucks, because if you're where you wanted to be, you wouldn't feel like you should be someplace else. It's kind of what I would frame as it's an interjected level of motivation, where I know there's a value here, right? But it's not something that's deeply rooted in me, right? It's not like I know there's a value and it's integrated where it's valuable for me, so therefore I act on it. I know it's inherently universally valuable, but it's not a part of my makeup or my aspirations or my value system. And that creates conflict, because I should be doing that. Should's very unstable, and people who operate on shoulds usually don't engage in sustainable behavior change that leads to a level of satisfaction. It's like, if you were going to do it, rather than should, I have a few questions. Why would you want to do it? Where would you start? What are you able to do? Like, what do you feel confident about doing? And like, what would be your reasons Like what are your 2 to 3 top reasons for doing it? And if you didn't do it, what's the worst thing that will happen? And does that matter to you? If so, why? Why does that matter even? And it's like, that's the preparatory talk that's leading to change talk, if you will. That's a far more constructive conversation than I should.
The really great thing is these days there's so much access to so many different ideas and methods and people and resources to absorb or learn or make change. The challenge is maintaining your mindset around the fact that also quite a huge number of those are people that have done a thing that works for them and it's great, so they're teaching how to replicate the exact thing that worked for them, whether or not it worked for the reasons they are aware of or not, but also the fact that you just might not fit. And then so we can go in and have experiences or learnings or do courses and things and come out and go, oh, it didn't work for me, so I'm shit. I can't do this. And we tell it. So, and I think that's dangerous because it might be with the fact that, oh, for some reason that worked for them, but the reason that it worked isn't the reason that they believe it is, and they're teaching based on it believing that. So I don't know, it's challenging.
I agree with you. I think that's a hard thing to unpack, but there's like this success bias. Like something worked for me, and here's my story about why it worked for me.
Yeah.
Is that a data-driven assumption? I'm not saying everything has to be a data-driven decision in your life, but a lot of times you don't see the world objectively and clearly. It could have been something else. And like, there's so many, like,
could be luck.
Well, you know, let's look at it this way, right? Let's say I'm a world-class concert pianist. Could you picture it?
Yeah. Can you teach me? I'm on my way.
Well, first you got to sort that pedal thing out. Right? That's fundamental. If you can't get that pedal thing,
I'll have that sorted by Thursday.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll start Friday. And I tell myself that I got to where I was because I worked hard. Well, okay, granted, but there's no such thing as a lazy concert pianist. You know, you'll never interview anyone who's at the top 1% of anything and go, well, how'd you get there? Well, the first thing I did is I got myself a subscription to Netflix and I quit my job. And then I ate a lot of ice cream, binge watching my favorite shows. And then next thing you know, I was at fucking Carnegie Hall. Can't figure it out. You'll never hear shit like that. So everybody who's at the top of the game is working really hard. But it's like, no, I had this methodology where I evaluated and modified my piano technique based on a method I created. And it's like, was it really that? Or was it the fundamental skills you learned when you were going through work with a tutor? Or think about this. Let's say you grew up in a household where one or more of your parents were musicians, not world-class like you, but the second you started showing interest in the piano, they went out and got you one because they supported that versus growing up in a household where you picked up an instrument and dad broke it. And it's like, what are you doing? And handed you a football, right? So at that point, your chance of becoming a world-class concert pianist just decreased. But because your parents were so enthusiastic, they not only got you the tools and they not only got you the teachers, but you got love and approval and support. Like, oh, wow, this is really aligned. And guess what? Who do musicians hang out with? Other people who are musicians in the music industry. It's like, okay, so my kid's really good. We just listen to him. So there was a connection made where football dad, right, never would have had that connection. So you never would have met that person. Is that saying that you can't be a concert pianist? No, I mean, but the hill is so much more steep, but you're not realizing it because, well, that's just the way it is. You would have to really take a look at all the other people who had equal skill, who had equal work ethic, who practiced in a way that's similar to you as long as you practice, as hard as you practice, as frequently as you practice, what percentage of them made it? So there's all these variables. So you go to a course and someone's like, well, this is my method and this works for 3% of the people who take my course. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. Well, 3%, that's not a very high success rate. Oh, yeah, because it's only 3% of the people that are willing to do the work. Yes. The other 97%. But you're sitting there working your ass off going, something's wrong with me. I must not be working hard enough. You're probably working harder than the 3%. How do you know you're not? So there's that's why, randomized controlled studies are utilized versus, anecdotal evidence. Well, I did this and that was my experience. Well, okay. That's probably not as solid of an assumption as you think it might be. So yeah, I could not agree with you more. But I mean, having said that, on the other side, there are universal attributes that no matter what will serve you, no matter what your potential is. So you might grow up in a household where your dad, broke your instrument and handed you a football and you had no connections. But if you work your ass off, you're still going to get a benefit from it. If you sit down, you're like, I will, like you said, if you really wanted to be funny, right? You wouldn't tell like cheesy dad jokes all the time. You'd be legitimately funny and you're right. You're absolutely right. And does that mean that I would be a famous comedian with my own Netflix special? I'm talking about Netflix a lot tonight. I don't know why, but it doesn't really mean that, but it does mean that I would get a lot more satisfaction and I would improve and I might be a funny person to hang around with. So I would develop greater social ties, and social ties are directly connected to well-being. So I might live a few years longer. And however long I live, I might get more enrichment out of my life because I worked my ass off on open mic nights, even though I might not have the same vehicle as somebody else. So, yeah.
Went for a walk last week with Katie Parker, and she was our Aussie amateur boxer that brought home bronze medal in the last Olympics. And I said, how many fights have you had? She said 127. I was like, wow, when did you start? 13 years old. She'd done taekwondo for self-defense so she could walk to school. She has had 127 fights. 80-something of those, I believe, I might get the numbers wrong, were overseas. And middle class, she was talking about her family, middle-class family, didn't have a lot, relocated. She had a brother. And because I went to say, back then, that was before I started fighting. I started in 2012. I think she started in maybe around 2010. I was like, oh, they were hard. How'd you even get I went to say, how'd you get the fights? And I'm like, obviously overseas, because how many 13-year-olds are fighting? Her parents, her middle-class parents, found a way to get the means to get this girl overseas to have fights at 13 years old and support. Like, I've got goosebumps right now. I was like, what an incredible sacrifice and act that they did in order for her to be able to do that. And there's just so many people that wouldn't get that. Like, that's amazing. You also made me think
so many people.
Kevin McGee I'd interviewed before, and he was one of our back in, what year was it? 1988. I think he won the Spanish Grand Prix on the motorcycles. And he had an accident and a traumatic brain injury. And not long after that accident, he was back racing again real quick, and they tested him. And I remember thinking this at the time. They tested his reaction time, and they were like, oh, mate, you're up to – I can't remember what the numbers or anything were, but they were like, it's better than most people still. And I just went – in that moment, I was like, here's a human being whose reaction time is freakishly quick. That's what it takes. You can grab the fastest motorbike on the planet, but if your brain and body can't make the decision and take action the same pace as this guy, no amount of practice or a great bike is going to be able to, like, there's some things that, and we just don't think about that. We don't think about things. I think about it now all the time. Like if I had my time, again, boxing, what would I spend my time training? Would it be hitting the bag, or would it be, hey, how could I improve my reaction time? What are all the tiny little things? That's part of the appeal for the piano for me was, what's something that stretches my brain? What will enhance creative thinking? I don't know how, but I know that the piano and music and doing something with two completely different things with three different fucking limbs and that's stretching my brain in a different way. I love that. It's not just learning to play a piece of music.
See, and for that, you need intrinsic motivation.
Yes. And if it wasn't for my experience in boxing, I probably wouldn't have the intrinsic motivation for this, because there's all of these things that I recognize. You know, I was just willing to bring home that piano, find a YouTube clip, learn how to do a scale, and everyone seems to complain about practicing scales because it's boring. And I sat there for hours just going, I'm going to master this scale. I'm going to master this scale, because I know what repetition does. I know that this is building pathways that are going to come in handy for me. I'll do the fucking work. I'll take the punches. I threw a jab 1,000 fucking times. Way more than 1,000. Lots of thousands probably. That one punch, get your hand from your face to straight out in front of you. One way. Just do it over and over and over. And now I've got 88 bloody different keys and in a whole different language to learn. And it's like, wow, that's really overwhelming. But I know what it takes, and I'm just willing to sit there and do it.
Yeah, that is what it takes. I've read something so interesting where for the average professional golfer, and if you're a professional golfer, it's like, well, okay, you've done a lot of work. You're really good. How many PGA tours do they win in a lifetime? And it's somewhere between 0 and 1. I mean, if you win a PGA tour once, it's like, that's a massive accomplishment. Like you're just going to get like free beers for life at your local pub. But then you have like Arnold Palmer, who won over 60. Oh. And then you have Jack Nicklaus, who won over 70. And I think if I'm, if I read this correctly, then you have like Tiger Woods, who went beyond Jack Nicklaus. And it's like you have these people who are so far and above everybody else. Are these people innately like far more talented than everyone? No, I don't think you're good. I don't think it's possible for a human being, maybe like, I don't know, when we embody AI into these like robots that can move well, but I think it's impossible for a human being to be 70 times more skilled than a professional in the same field. It's that rigor, isn't it? It's that grit. But it's the problem I have with grit and discipline is how it's defined and explained. Like, it's like, you are lacking. And if you only had this, which you don't have, if you are only more motivated, less lazy, that is bullshit. It's like that. I think it's the pathway to a life well freaking lived, because you're not going to be happy pursuing hedonic pleasure. And I believe in hedonic pleasures. Like, I like to go up to my rooftop and overlook the city and like the old headquarters, the West Coast United States headquarters of PTA Global. I can see the building from where I'm living right now and just reminisce and just like take a sip of wine or maybe a cup of coffee. I love hedonic pleasures, but there's only so much of that you can engage in. It's like, yes, most people like, what do you want to be? And we did an episode on this, like happiness. Like the happiness is a freaking scam. Like pursuing happiness is almost a guaranteed strategy to have happiness elude you for the rest of your life. A lot of it's genetic, it's like, oh, you read a book on like happiness. It's like, but so much of how happy we are or curmudgeonous we are, I have that attribute, is hereditary. Heredity, natural selection, gene mutation. And it's like you could work really hard and just become a little bit happier. It doesn't seem worth it. Engage in something, become freakishly good at something, become obsessed with something, and do all that work. Shit, you'll be pretty happy, or a lot happier than you would be pursuing happiness by itself. I think I'm going to go do like stand up again. I'm going to be
yes, do it.
Go do it. Yeah, I think
you can have a stand up battle with Jimmy Carr.
I don't think at my age I think I'll be dead before I get enough repetitions to, like, I wouldn't even heckle him. Like in that part of the show where he opens it up to hecklers, I keep my freaking mouth shut. It's
if there was anyone that I was going to heckle, it will be him, because he's quite, the amount of times he like applauds them and gets the audience to applaud the heckler and tells them that was very good. I'm like, that's good. You're a friend. That's a friendly heckle.
God, he's just, there's so, I love Jimmy. I'm not saying he's my favorite comedian in terms of style and content, but in terms, I love him. Don't get me wrong. I like watching his comedy, but in terms of craft, he's unreal.
Yeah.
Just absolutely unreal. There's a lot to be learned there.
There is a lot to be learned. The comedy festival, has just started here. It's just started here in Melbourne, and I've booked a couple of gigs. I'm gonna go to a lot. I went to one or two last year, but every other year I always go, I'm going to go to the comedy festival, and then I don't do it. This year I am comedying my head off. I just think the more I followed a lot of comedians this year, so that when I have a moment where I'm like, I'm going to spend some time watching reels, that time is spent laughing and I love it. I'm like, oh, that's a good waste of time. So comedy festival.
It's not a waste of time at all. I mean, one, you're engaging in something you really enjoy. Two, it elevates your biochemistry in very positive ways that do carry over into work. And, you know, if you go from watching comedy to studying comedians, I don't know if there's any group of people on earth, with the exception of actors, and my bias would be stage performers, that you can learn more things that carry over into any profession in any field where you're not the only person in that field and you have to actually communicate with others.
That's incredibly true. That is incredibly true. You know what it made me think of? I'm doing a speaking program this year, because I want to learn more about the stuff I haven't learned about speaking. I really want to focus on getting better at that, which I've been skeptical about, I might add, who, again, based on what we talked about before, like, who do I trust? Who's not full of shit? Who's going to market some sort of course and I'm going to buy into it and be like, you're full of shit, or I don't like what you're teaching, or blah, blah, blah. But totally lost my train of thought then. Bobby, what was I talking about? Oh, no, I was thinking, so what I was thinking, it's the same thing as with comedians. You look at comedians and as a speaker, I have these moments where I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend this money. I'm going to hone the craft, because I really love sharing messages. I really love creating impact in people that are looking for something. And if I can connect a dot for someone, then it fills my cup. And then part of me sometimes goes, like, who the fuck are you anyway? What's your story? You're not even special. Why would you do this? Why would you be a speaker? And then you look at comedians and I'm like, you watch, like, Carl Barron is classic. He says the most basic shit and it's hilarious. And it's like, it's not about what story you've got. Like, I've got a story, but it's actually about how you share the lessons and insights in a way that can land with people, because he shares the dumbest jokes and I could watch him on repeat 1,000,000 times and still laugh my head off. So you can, there's a lot to learn there. Hopefully I don't do my speaker learning from watching Carl Barron, because that might change the game a bit. That might change what lessons land.
I'd attend a session.
Anyway, let's wrap it up. Any final words? Seems you're the master of that.
Well, I hope not. I'm hoping I'll live long enough to do this again. But you never know. Randomness of life.
Thanks,
I should probably tell you I love you. I mean, if these are indeed final words. Love you, Tiff.
I love you too, Bobby. Hey, enjoy your move.
Thanks for your French. Oh yeah, I won't, but cheers. Anyway, and thank you to the audience. It's great to be back, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.